In an ideal world, we would not be pinching our sweet peas, but sometimes life is less than ideal and you might have some Leggy Linda seedlings that you need to sort out. So they are going to make the flowers a bit shorter by pinching them, but you're probably better off doing that than leaving them as leggy as they are. So hopefully you followed my previous instructions and you've moved your sweet peas to plenty of light, which means they've stopped the upward growth and the canopy of leaves have started to open. So at this point, we can sort them out. So here is my Leggy Linda, and you can see she has fallen over like I expect yours have too, and that's absolutely fine. I'm just making sure that she's not able to get tangled up. And can you see that side shooting has been initiated? So it is now an absolute breeze to see where to pinch your sweet pea out. Now, before you get scissor happy, I have a little surprise for you. You can take cuttings from your sweet peas, and if you take them early enough so they get a long enough time to root properly, they will be just as good as those that we sowed by seed. Now, we don't tend to rely on this method. It's so much easier to sow seeds than it is to take cuttings. But if you find that you've lost a few plants and you're annoyingly a bit short of a particular colour, at this point, you can make yourself some freebies. I thought you might like to have a quick look at my sweet peas for comparison. So you can see they're getting very tall and they are starting to lean now. They can't hold themselves up on this thin stem forever, but that's completely normal. Don't worry about it. And we've got a nice bit of growth here. So when we come to plant them later on next year, we've got plenty to tie them in with. Can you see how firm the stems are? Other things you're going to need is some compost. I've mixed in some horticultural grit. You can use perlite or vermiculite. It's not essential. It just helps with the drainage. I've got a pen and some labels. I've got some hormone rooting powder here. Not essential, but it does help. A 9cm pot because sweet peas have a deep root run, and some sharp snips or scissors. You're also going to need a propagator or a plastic bag or something to cover the cutting. Because what we're going to do is we're going to sever the plant from its root system. It will continue to lose water through its leaves as a process called transpiration. However, it's going to be unable to replace that water immediately until it's put down a new root system. So by covering the cutting, and I will show you exactly how to do it, by covering the cutting, you significantly slow down the rate of transpiration, the rate the water leaves the plant, giving it that crucial extra time to create its new root system and take up water before it runs out. Okay, so we have Linda here, and we can see that we've got the new shoots coming from the stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip it off above this shoot here. Make sure your scissors are nice and sharp. And then I'm going to trim this cutting down because the leaves are where the new stems will grow from. So all of this plant material is no good because the hormones are situated just at the node where the leaves are. So we're going to snip that off there. And then I'm also going to take off some of the leaves to reduce the strain on the plant until it has a chance to create a new root system. I'm also going to take out the tip because that is where most of the water will be lost. Also, by taking out the tip, you remove the growth hormone from the tip, and that encourages the plant to go into creating more bushy growth, and in this case, roots. Here we go. So you can see that I've taken off the lower leaves and I've taken out the tip, and we had a little tendril growing there. This is now ready to pot up. If you get distracted, it's a very good idea to have some water nearby, and then you can just simply drop the cutting into water. It will rehydrate, and then you can come back and plant it later. Remember, I said that the plant will continue to lose water through its leaves, and without its root system, it's unable to replace that water without your intervention. So if you're not ready to plant your cutting up straight away, if the phone rings or you need to go and attend to something, drop the cutting into water. The plant will then rehydrate, preventing it from wilting and significantly increasing the chance of that cutting going on to take. So I've got a few more for you. I'm going to use my fingers just because it's easier for me to show you then. So I'm pinching off the lower leaves. Scissors are better if you haven't got sharp fingernails. Take off this one. I'm going to leave the top leaves in, but I am just going to take out that little shoot there. And I'll drop him into the water. Probably really overexcited now and looking around the greenhouse wondering what else you can take cuttings from at this time of the year. Nothing else, not at this time of the year. If you have a look at your sweet pea stem, have a feel of it, you can feel that it's quite fibrous, which is quite unusual. Nothing else in the greenhouse has got that kind of structure, and that's what allows us to be able to take a cutting without it wilting and collapsing. You can take cuttings from your snapdragons in the spring. We need to wait for them to be bigger, and we need to wait for their structure to be firmer. Personally, I'd rather just sow some more seeds rather than take too much off of the top of the plants that I've carefully overwintered for early flowers. I don't really want to jeopardize that crop, but you can do it if you want to. I will explain more about that next year. So I've got my hormone rooting powder. I never put my cutting into the container because you don't want to contaminate it or make the powder all wet, 'cause it's like talcum powder. And I'm literally applying the rooting powder to the nodes where I'm hoping the roots will come from, and that should encourage them. Then I'm going to dip myself a nice hole in the compost around the edge of the pot because it makes it easier to prevent overwatering, because the water can escape much more easily around the edge of the pot, where cuttings in the middle are a little bit more susceptible to being overwatered and being too damp and potentially rotting. There we go, and I'm just doing another one. You can put quite a few cuttings in the same pot because when they've taken later, you will be separating them out and giving them a bit more space. 3 to a pot, just like we would do with the seeds, but you might as well, I'm going to trim this one off, there's a little bit of a tail left on that. You might as well fit in quite a few because they might not necessarily all take. You might be lucky and all of them do take, but it's not guaranteed. So I always do a few more than I need so that I've got enough plants for later. Look at that. Here's our original plant. This is Leggy Linda, looking a lot happier. And then these are our cuttings. Just give the pot a little bang or a little tap just to make sure that all the stems are in contact with the compost. And then we're just going to simply place it in the propagator. There we go. And I'm just going to give it a little water. And you might notice there's a tiny bit of water in the bottom of the propagator just to keep the environment really humid because it's going to be on and there will be heat. I'm just going to take some pictures of the spring sunshine champagne. She's lovely, isn't she? I'll try her on a white background. I've already got pictures, but it's a good excuse to take some new ones, isn't it? Look at that. Outstanding. I love her. There we go, done. And there's no hurry at all to do this, anytime in the next couple of months. And I bet you're desperate to see how it turns out. So I'm going to play for you now some stories that I recorded last year and the results of my sweet pea cuttings then. Oh my God. I'm so excited. Is it just me? They get so excited. Look at that, plants for free. So if you didn't have a go and you haven't pinched the sweet pea tips out yet, you've still got plenty of time. So what we're going to do, we'll leave them on the side here in the cool to cool down and slow their growth down, and then in a few days' time we will split them and put them in their own pots, and we'll do it together. These are our rooted sweet pea cutting tips, and it's time now to tip them out of the pot and have a look at the root system. Look at those lovely roots. Now, sweet peas have got a very long root run, and you can see already that the roots are concertinaing up at the bottom. So I'm going to transplant them and give them a bit more space. But this is the reason why I always use tall pots for sweet peas. Don't worry if you've accidentally sown them in a small tray. You can just very carefully transplant them once they start to come up. There you go, it's falling apart nicely. You want to get them while they're quite young so they're easy to tease apart, because if you leave them too long they can get really knitted together, and it can be difficult to disentangle them without damaging them. Don't worry if they haven't all taken. Let's have a look at this one here. No, that's just rotted off, so that's fine. We're just going to discard that and pop it in the bin. I've taken quicker than others, so these are great big strapping cuttings here. 11 here so far, but I do have another pot here, so hopefully I can make them up into 3s and put them in the pots just like we would have done if they had been the peas that we germinated. Put them near the edges because it is safer from overwatering if they're near the edges, because the water can drain away. If you put them right in the middle, then you've got wetness all the way round, but this way you've only got wetness from this side. We'll fill it with some brand new fresh multi-purpose compost. Give that a pat. And they will sort their own roots out, so there's no need to worry. Just be really gentle when you put them in, and then they will stretch out themselves. Don't forget your label. There we go, those. What you could do is sit them in a tray of water just for 20 minutes, and that will hydrate the compost from underneath, and frankly, that's where the roots are. Looking at your pot and you're wondering if they've taken. This fresh growth is an indication they won't grow like this if they haven't put down roots. So you remember when we took the cuttings, we actually took the tip off because that was liable for wilting. So the fact it's grown a new one means it's definitely taken, and you're safe to pot them on. There, look at that healthy nest of roots, and you can see the foliage. If you look at your foliage, if it hasn't got this toughness about it, then you just need to harden it off a little bit longer before you put it out. But yeah, last one. In you go, my darling. Go. And then backfill carefully. We're just finding their best side.
All sides are good. No bad angle.